all of you guys know me, who I am, and you all, I'm assuming that everybody knows that I knew ever since I was 5 years old that I was going to come out here since I was 5 years old to be a missionary and teach in a Christian school out here. Everybody knows that, right? Ever since I was 5 years old.
Where were you from?
West Virginia. Well, I was born in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio. But then I lived in West Virginia since I was 9 months old. And since I was 5 years old, I was raised in a Christian home. And so ever since I was 5 years old, I started saying I was going to come to the Indian reservation and teach in a Christian school on the Indian reservation. And it was always in South Dakota. And I think it was probably because Brainerd Indian School was, somewhere where we sent boxes to. So I knew of Brainerd Indian School. And I wrote letters to, I had a pen pal at Brainerd Indian School. So, all of you might have known that before. I might have mentioned that last week when I talked. So, so I've shared that a lot, and so I always knew that. And Tim, who is my husband, in case you didn't know, and Tim has worked in ministry and children's ministry. He has done foster care, so we have a lot of things in common. But he lost his wife of 23 years, and after he lost his wife, has struggled since then of knowing where he fits as far as ministry goes. So, I think that, I have felt really bad for him as far as, how do I help him to find where his calling is as far as ministry goes. But in sharing my own, it's not really empathy, because I've never felt that way until God was like, okay, now I'd like to help you have a little more empathy for Tim, and I would like to say, now I would like for you to just go out there and just say hi to everybody that you meet and be kind to everybody that you come upon, and not know what your next step is, and just be kind of muddling through out there and see how it feels for a while. And just kind of, I don't know, the last few weeks, where it's kind of like God has helped me to, in a weird kind of way, has helped me to understand a little bit more, and it has been through, in an odd way, Dr. Seuss. Now, I never have liked Dr. Seuss before this, and so what happened was, I was talking to Tim, and I was at, it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was at where we're at, we're ministering, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that I was called to be a teacher. Yes, when I was 5 years old. Oh, holy teacher that I am. And to the Native Americans. And I get to do this. And I'm so sorry, Tim, that you don't know what you were going to do. But I get to teach. And I was like, so I was just, not meaning to be like that, but I was just, like, kind of like, oh, I'm happy I get to do this. And so I was but you can do ministry here or there. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in the clouds. You can do it on the, so I was like doing this, and all of a sudden I started doing like Dr. Seuss, and I thought this is really cool. I'm like quoting Dr. Seuss, and I've never been a Dr. Seuss like fan, and Erica has been. Erica loves Dr. Seuss. So I started quoting Dr. Seuss. And this is where my PowerPoint comes in. So I'm gonna show you my PowerPoint of Dr. Seuss. Okay? Ministry, you can do it. And you can tell me if as I read it, you can tell me if you've ever felt this way. Here's the guy going running. Ministry, you can do it. You can do it here or there. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in a house. You can do it with a mouse. You can do it in a box. You can do it with a fox. You can do it in a car. You can do it anywhere they are. You may like it. You will see. You may like it in a tree. You can do it with a goat. You can do it on a boat. You can do it in the rain. You can do it on a train. You can do it in the dark. You can do it at the park. You can do it here or there. You can do it. Heaven cares. So, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to say a few things about that. First of all, when you think about it, have any of you, and I want you to think in your minds, I'm going to have, Miguel, go ahead and give out the papers and the pens. Oh, we should have brought clipboards, but my teacher brain was not thinking about clipboards. So I want you, this time, we're going to go back. And we're going to watch this again. And this time, instead of thinking of it as funny, I want you to think, when you think about doing ministry, do you have anything that any of these things do scare you about? Like, would it scare you if there was a mouse where you were doing ministry? Because I can tell you, I saw a mouse doing ministry. Over these past 2 weeks, after God had me come up with this poem, and I thought I was so grand and so brilliant and so funny. Yeah, I saw a mouse and went screaming out the door of a place I was doing ministry at. So it wasn't so funny anymore that you can do ministry where there's a mouse. When you actually see the mouse, it's not quite as funny. But I want you to think about some of these places in this poem, and are there any of these places or any of these things that, as I read this, that would actually scare you to do ministry at? Or would it bring any triggers? Or do you have a story to go along with it? Just jot it down. Don't write the whole story out, because if you want to share about it, you can. You don't have to. And I'm not doing therapy. No. Whoever asked me that question. I don't want to be a therapist. I've had people ask me that question. I'm like, no, please. Okay. So I'm going to read it again. I want you guys to think about it. Instead of thinking of it as funny, I want you to think about it as serious this time. Ministry. You can do it. You can do it here or there. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in a house. You can do it with a mouse. You can do it in a box. You can do it with a fox. You can do it in a car. You can do it anywhere they are. You may like it. You will see. You may like it in a tree. You can do it with a goat. You can do it on a boat. You can do it in the rain. You can do it on a train. You can do it in the dark. You can do it at the park. You can do it here or there. Just do it. Do it. Heaven cares. Okay, were there any of those things that brought anything to your mind that would make you think that would be a scary place for me to do ministry? Or no, don't think I would like that. Or I don't like doing ministry anywhere, actually. Is there any thought process going on here, or are you just, like, I'd rather leave?
Well, Carrie changed the car to bar, so I don't know if you want it.
Okay.
It says anywhere, so.
Well, my dad used to go into bars. They did ministry in Cincinnati, Ohio when I was born, and they went into bars and knelt down beside big boxes of alcohol and prayed with people. And my dad, he never had a drinking problem, so he never had any problem with going in and just kneeling down and praying with people in bars. Didn't even affect him. Can you guys talk in here just so my parents can hear?
I've had to go into some scary places to do some rescues, so it's been pretty scary, and you just know that you have the Holy Spirit with you, and you just go in and just do it. And God has always been there every single time, so I can relate going into a bar or wherever, you have to go, because God sends you there, so you just do it.
I've been into a lot of biker clubs, what they call one percenters, and that can be scary. But you got to be, well, she's been with me. You definitely got to be suited up with the full armor of God when you go in there.
Okay, when the goat part, just because it reminds me of what we were praying downstairs about the barn and revival coming, and how when revival falls and people come to meet the Lord because of his presence, we may deal with a lot of people who have been in barns, literally, but we need to overlook some of those things, because if you've been in a barn, you might smell, you might be dirty, and we need to get over our shock in that area, and knowing that the Lord has called them and he'll clean them up. The Holy Spirit will do the drawing. So the whole thing just kind of reminded me of God is there, God is everywhere, and if he's calling us to be his hands and feet, like that wonderful song, then we need to be willing to go where Jesus would go. And we only have a little bit of time to do all that. So it may be barns with animals to rescue a soul.
How we got into ministry where I was at was through goats, actually.
So goat stuck out to me too, because it was the Father, Son, and Holy Goat that got us into Korea. Because we were going in with the idea in our own mindset, with the skills we had, which was with computers, which are highly illegal in certain countries that are trying to remain closed. So that avenue and the skills that we had didn't work at all, but through miraculous processes of bringing goats from New York all the way over to South Korea and then into North Korea. And that's the way that everything got started there, was through a goat. So it's oftentimes, God will change what you think you're going to do compared to what actually will work. So goats can be holy.
2 for goats. They're winning. I just had to say that.
One day, a long time back, a minister asked me a really strange question. If I would go into a nudist colony to preach, and I thought, no way. I thought to myself, no way, there's no way. And I still struggle with that question.
That's the end of it?
That's it. I never.
You asked for triggers and stuff. Is there any place that we would not go, and if, what would they be?
My mom went and tuned a piano in a nudist colony. He's like, I think she did. I think she knew it. I don't think it was as much of a trigger as it might have been for a man.
Okay, the other one I was thinking of was a goat. I mean, not a goat. Man. Brain freeze. That doesn't happen to me. I do this for a living. Okay, it was a fox. A fox. And the reason is, listen to this. Foxes have pointed muzzles, bushy tail. They are proverbial to be cunning and beautiful. And they baffle, they deceive. So I think a fox would be so hard to do because they deceive, they look good, and you need God's guidance and wisdom when you're dealing with foxes to show you that you're dealing with a fox, because they're sly. Yeah.
I have another one. Okay, so we were talking about the mouse. No, I'm going to switch it to a spider because I was helping this person move for the 3rd time, and she had her stuff in storage, and we were unpacking, and I was just flipping these shoes out of this box, and I'm not kidding you, the thing was like borderline tarantula, and she had this bottle of bug spray, and literally we were spraying it, and it was hissing at us, and that was like I was hyperventilating in a bag because I hate spiders. Anyway, that's my story.
She hates spiders.
You know what to do on Halloween now.
I freaked her out one time and never again.
Never.
She fell on my 12 gauge.
Yep.
I don't know if you're switching gears or not, but we're talking about triggers.
Go ahead, I'll take. Go ahead. I didn't mean to. I didn't hear you. That's all right. He's gonna put the first slide on. The very first one. The very first one. Well, not that one. The first one. The very first one, not the end one. The very first one. I'm going to lose my train of thought. I'm old. I'll lose it quick. Now, that is the first one. That's what I'm wanting right there. Now, I don't know how many people catch this, and no, the word ministry is misspelled. but it fits right where I'm at. It fits right where I'm at, because it combines ministry and mystery, and it's minister. I had it in my head a while ago. Ministry, and it's a mystery. That is kind of where I'm at right now. So these next 2 or 3 weeks, I will be out of town, and that's definitely a mystery for why I'm doing it. But or not why I'm doing it, but that I'm doing it. So, and there may be some opportunity for ministry there. There probably will be, because there's been opportunities everywhere. You just got to find them. So, but anyway, I just thought that was a new word, combining ministry and mystery. Ministry. Hopefully, ministry is not misery for you.
Okay, if we're talking about misery, okay, Missouri is misery. So you do ministry and misery.
Somebody's supposed to go to Missouri.
I was just going to say that I remember when I was being prayed out to go to Korea, and people were really praying all of these beautiful prayers, and I remember saying, like, it's not hard to go where God calls you. And I was like, what am I saying? But I think that was something that really the Holy Spirit was kind of showing me, because even though you have a lot of triggers, if there's that calling within your heart, or that love for those people, that land, whatever it is, that kind of work, I don't know. But when God gives you that kind of calling, it goes beyond the misery. It does. It goes on, and it goes beyond the triggers, because I've done a lot of things that normally I don't think I would want to, and been in places, but that's when God shows up the most, and that's when you can really see his presence and his power.
Speaking about the trigger portion of it, if there's places we would not go or could not go, or felt like we couldn't. A couple years ago, or last year before last, when Basil Baz came out, and they were asking for people that would want to be part of that training to be more front lines for being able to help with the rescues, I realized that I could not even go to the conference because I wanted so much to be a part of it, but the triggers were so bad. Just the idea going back into those places that I had been freed from, not believing I would have the strength or the understanding of the Holy Spirit to go in there. It was terrifying to the place where I would not even face people to be able to say or share or even show that I was terrified, because the triggers were so intense. And so when the Lord exposed that in my heart to be able to show that I so wanted to be more actively involved, but something was physically stopping me, he then allowed for me to have 6 months of intensive healing for severe PTSD. So it wasn't that I was canceled out of that frontline position, but he was right there to take me through the intensive healing I needed, so the next year when he came around, I could go to even just the banquet with the confidence that if the Lord was calling me deeper, he had prepared me to be able to say yes, and to know that whether I lived or died, because some of those situations is live or die, I had to make sure that there were things that were taken care of, not because God wasn't faithful, but because it was holding me back from stepping fully into the call he had for me. And so as he shared with me what those things were, he gave me the chance to heal, to make sure things were taken care of. So when I responded yes to the call, it would be a full yes to the trust that he had taught me to have in him.
This summer we had an outreach in Pine Ridge, and it was like a week long. And one of the main intercessors there, she said, will you guys come, because we really need you to be here and pray. So I said, yeah, we'll come. And we ended up, she said, we have a house for you to stay at. So we, after the first night, we drove way out on this dusty road. And we turned. We didn't even know where we were going. It was like out past north, it was in Nebraska, past White Clay. And we were going down this dusty road, and then we saw the cemetery. She said, you'll see a cemetery and a church, and then the house is behind there. So as we turned down this like 2-lane dirt road to go toward the house, Josh looked, and there was like all these bushes, big, huge, tall bushes almost covering the road, and then the old cemetery, the old church, and it was just like dilapidated, just like really, really this old house. And we were pulling up, and Josh was like, this is the stuff of spooky movies. And I was like, oh, great, here we go. So we pulled in there, and then she showed us in. There was no air conditioning, and she was like, you guys are gonna all sleep downstairs. So she took us downstairs, and it was like so like moldy that a couple of the ladies were like, we're gonna go sleep in a tent outside. So after they first did that, I was like, maybe I should go sleep in the car. I don't know. I had him, and he immediately started getting an allergic reaction. But anyway, we toughed it out downstairs that first night. But in the middle of the night, and I am terrified of mice. Victoria knows that. Her and I are both terrified of mice. So I was laying there. I literally could hear something like running above, and we were like laying in the living room downstairs, and there was like these panels that were missing up on the ceiling, and I could hear like something running around above my head, and I was so, like I couldn't even sleep. I was so scared, and he was like sleeping, so I covered our heads up, and I was like laying there, and I was like, Lord, you know how terrified I can't do this. And I seriously was going to go out in the car and go to sleep, but I prayed, and I lay there, and I prayed, and all of a sudden it just stopped, and I lay there and I waited. I was like, because I was thinking they could fall on us, on our heads while we're sleeping or something. I was like terrified, but it went away, and then it just like disappeared, and thank God. And then we moved upstairs after that first night. But there was that, and then there was another story I was thinking of. But there's a couple of times when I've had to really, do things despite my fears, and God always came through. Thank God.
But the Lord is so filled with so many things, because those fears, I was terrified of heights, literally terrified of heights. And yet the Lord still had me be able to even like go up to the top of Bear Butte, and nobody knew the terror and the literally crawling on hands and knees to be able to get steps and steps. And there's other people jumping and like running and prancing like deers on the sides of the slopes that's covered with snow and ice, and I'm barely making it. And it took a long time, but the Lord's faithfulness, being able to be in the midst of the most terrifying of fears, he was right there to be faithful, got to the top, and then the burden of that fear was lifted. And then, for all the high places we went to, most people didn't know I was terrified step by step the higher we got, and yet the Lord was right there to be able to share. I wasn't that I was afraid of heights, I was afraid of the fall. The fall, like from the very beginning of Adam and Eve's, that fall had been so ingrained that if I even look or breathe wrong, I'm going to hell. And that's not the gospel. And he's given us so much and empowered us. And when we get past those things and he brings in that healing, he's there everywhere. He's in that box, even though I'm not going to recommend going for that one. I'm not volunteering for the in the box one. Mine came with bars.
Well, I definitely feel like the MRI machine is the box for me. Every time I have to do an MRI, I just have to pray the whole time. Oh, I get medicated and I still have to pray. Yeah, the medication does not put me all the way out. And then I'm just like, yeah. And they're like, ma'am, you need to hold still. And I'm like, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm in a coffin with the I'm like, I'm praying and I still can't hold still. But so for me, I feel like that what God has kind of put me into now is like having to go back into a place of like not really knowing how to do the ministry that he's like, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. Kind of like I'm supposed to say hi to everybody, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to hug them. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to, what I'm supposed to do with them. And I just know that I'm supposed to love on them. And I'm not like I'm really trying to love on people and say hi to everybody and be really really loving toward them, and I'm doing a pretty good job. And I know, and I like over at the new building, and I'm really trying, and I really feel like that I am doing a good job at it as far as that goes. Like, I'm getting the point across pretty good, but I know that like I'm having to work at it really hard. And I feel like that it is God's way of saying, this is so you will understand how hard it is for your husband, because he doesn't know how to do what to do with this ministry yet. And you are being a smart aleck about it, because you're like, I got called when I was 5 years old and I know how to do this. So now you don't know how to do it. And now you have to learn how to do it. And so I feel like God has really kind of given me a little smack upside of the head. And I'm glad, because you know what? I needed that. I needed to be like, you know what? No, that's not okay. You know what? But I also feel like that God has showed me something, and that is and I don't know. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, because most of you guys do know what God has called you to do. And so maybe that I'm just preaching to the choir. Nobody needs to hear this. But if nobody needs to hear it, then maybe it is for somebody out there that it's going to be on the internet or whatever for. But one day Christelle called me, and she had no car at that time. And it wasn't long. She hadn't been back to the Lord for a long time at that time. And she had no car, and that was after she had gone on her mission trip to Africa, and she had given up her car, she had lost her car so she could go on the mission trip. And then she had no car when she came back. The money that could have been for a car she had used on her mission trip. She came back and she said, Mom, I'm really lonely. I'm living in these apartments. I have no car. I'm walking up and down the hill, for exercise. And I don't know, I'm lonely. What do I do? I don't have any way to get to church, and I'm just lonely. And I said, well, Christelle, if you're lonely and you have no car and you don't have a way to get to church, then you need to start doing ministry from where you're at. You're a missionary. You just came back from Africa. Now, I was raised that you are either a missionary or a mission field. There was no in between. I looked up a lot of scriptures today, and I was going to bring all these scriptures, and I thought, you know what? I'm preaching to the choir. You guys already know. I could ask you guys to quote scriptures. I could ask you guys to pick out scriptures. You guys could quote all those scriptures, lots of those scriptures. You guys could quote to me. And you guys already know a lot of those scriptures. This is the thing. When I told Christelle this, I said, you are a missionary. You just went to Africa. If you are trapped in these apartments and that's where you are and you have nowhere else except those apartments, then you are a missionary to those apartments. That is where God wants you to be a missionary too. So start with those apartments and be a missionary. And she was crying. I was crying. It was hard because I wanted to say, come home because you're lonely. I'm your mom and I want you here. And I want Ian here. And I don't want you guys to be that far away. I want you to be here with me because that's really what I want still. But I told her that, and you know what she started doing? She started being a missionary in those apartments. To the other mothers there, she started being a missionary. And you know what happened? God gave her 2 cars. She started being a missionary to those mothers, and pretty soon she had 2 cars, and she was able to haul those mothers to church. She found churches that were, you know, the right churches where she felt like she could be. Pretty soon, she started going to church on Saturdays and Sundays and hauling people to churches both days. And when Cortland went to stay with her, Cortland, when she came back to stay with us her senior year, was a totally different person. Like, she had been with Christelle, and she was a different person. We could tell that her life had been changed from living with Christelle. We said, Christelle, did Cortland, like, what happened while she was there? She said, well, I don't know. Like, it's just that on Saturdays, we just spend Saturday, we turn off the TV and we just either journal or turn on praise and worship, and we just spend time with God, and then we go to church on Saturday nights, and then we go to church. And Cortland said, yeah, we go to church all the time at her place. So all she did was, I was like, all she did was listen to, I'm a missionary here, wherever I am. So I have, and I know, like I said, I'm preaching to the choir. You guys already know, you're missionaries wherever you are. But I have a paper that for Miguel, wherever the papers are to pass out. Oh, yeah, well, he passed those papers out, but these are not plain. I didn't want to pass these papers out at the beginning because I know what people do. Because, I know what I do. Okay, if you pass out a paper at the beginning that has the stuff on it to do at the, then people do it while they're supposed to be listening. So anyway, the one with the circle on it, I'm going to give it to you. You don't have to do it right now. You can do it, you can not do it, whatever you think. But it is a paper, and this is just, if you feel like that you're wondering, what does, I don't know what ministry I'm supposed to be doing. It's just kind of to say, hey, look at the people in your life and start with them. Start with the people in your life and just start ministering to them. And then because I just feel like that's what God has showed me, is that if we don't know where to start, we can just start with whoever God's already put in our life. And I know there's lots of good places you can volunteer and all that kind of stuff. But we've already got, we've got our kids, we've got our grandkids, we've got our parents, we've got people in our life that we can start ministering to start out with. And I know there's so many of us that are already like in a ministry or doing things. Then secondly, I am going to put in a little plug for Living Hope because I can't go out without putting in a plug for Living Hope. And I'm just going to say, I do have a paper here, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. And that is, if you are interested in knowing any more about Living Hope, and the volunteer opportunities or the giving opportunities or the prayer opportunities. Oh, I should have said prayer first. The prayer opportunities or the giving opportunities or the volunteer opportunities at Living Hope, then this is so that you will know what kind of opportunities are there as well. Okay? So I'm so thankful for you guys letting me do this tonight. And I love you guys, and thank you. And hi, parents.
Hi, Victoria's parents.
And my parents are the ones that made me missionary minded.
Yes.